How's it going, my friend? It is Danny here from ProjectManaverse.com, real world technical project management for beginners. And in this video, I'm going to explain how to close your project. I'm going to talk about project closure. I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you why it's important that you understand this as a project manager. And then I'll go into the actual process and give you some tips. So let's jump in. What is project closure? Well, in an IT project, technical project in particular, takes a long time. It's a lot of work. It's blood, sweat and tears. Sometimes these projects can take up to a year or even longer. And when you finally go live and you put your code into production, it's such a pent up reservoir of stress and emotions when you finally do it and it goes well. When you go live and you put your code into the production environment, and you usually do that on a big weekend, you're working around the clock and it goes live, you're kind of holding your breath for the first couple of days to see how it's going in the live environment. Are you going to get loads of defects raised? Is the system going to work? Are you going to get negative feedback? So you're kind of holding your breath for a day or so. But once you realize that it's gone well, it's been successful, and there are no big issues, it's such a release of emotion, and it's just all this adrenaline you've had over the last few months to get it live just kind of go, oh, and just like kind of relax. So it's very tempting to almost go, yeah, we delivered, and just go, all right, well, I can't be bothered to do it anymore. I'm just going to move on to the next one. I just don't have the energy to do anything else. But unfortunately, you can't just walk away once you've had that big emotional event at the go live. You have to do certain things before you can walk away. You need to complete certain tasks, you need to deliver certain deliverables, and you need to influence certain stakeholders before you can actually formally close down the project. So that's what project closure is. It's actually closing down the project formally and putting a line in the sand and putting some governance behind it, rather than just saying you've delivered and that's it and walking away. So why should you care about this as a project manager? Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, this is a standard task or deliverable for all project management methodologies across the different industries. So you'll be expected to know how to do this, and you'll be expected to do it as a project manager, unless companies are moving on to more agile ways of working. But this is a traditional must do for any traditional project. That's number one. Number two, it's in your interest to do this properly, because if you don't close it down and properly, formally remove yourself from the project, sometimes you can never escape it, because as the project manager, you know everything about the project, you know most about the project, no one else knows more about the project. So you become, in most cases, the face of the project. All those stakeholders, all those business people that are using the applications, they might come to you. So if you deliver and you haven't closed it off and had that clean break, you might find yourself, your inbox still filling up with questions from business people or whoever, different stakeholders, questions about the project, when it should now be a BAU query to answer, business as usual. So if you've done it properly, you can quickly deflect those questions to whoever should be now running that process in the operations. Should be no reason why you're still involved. I'll give you an example of this. I did this huge integration once where we're integrating a couple of call centres. One was in Leeds and one was in Bournemouth, in these two cities in the UK. And they were selling insurance, these policies, these call centres. But the big project, the overall big program, was to merge these two. There was basically a merger of two companies. So we were looking at our company resources and trying to merge things. So we thought we'd have a virtual contact center. So our call would go into the business, and it could be either diverted to the Leeds contact center or the Bournemouth contact center, depending on which had the most availability. So calls could get answered quickly. And to do that, we had to introduce this new sales software. And funnily enough, it was called ISIS, the software. This was a long time ago, obviously, before all that happened and all that kicked off. But yeah, the software was called ISIS. But that was a huge program, and I really became the face of that project, especially to all the people in the users in the contact centers that were selling the insurance. There's hundreds of them. And for months and months. This is one of my earlier projects. I was still being asked questions about the software and the system, and I couldn't escape it. It took me a long time to get away from that project. But that was one of my, that was actually before I became a formal project manager. I was more of an SME working in a project team, but I wasn't the project manager at that point. But I was dealing with a lot of the testing and telling them how to do the workarounds and education pieces on the actual software and resolving defects and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it took me a long time to get away from that. But if a proper clean handover had been done and a proper project closure, I could have easily escaped and just deflected those questions to the BAU team at that point. So yeah, it can happen, and you want to avoid that. You want to have a clean break and just move on to your new project without having to carve out any of your time to answer questions on your previous project. So you want that clean break. So that's why it's important. So let's now move on to the actual project closure and how to do it. So what do you need to do to close down your project? Well, the first thing you need to do is get through your warranty period. Every IT project, when it goes live, it won't just go live and that's it. The project should remain open for some period of time, an agreed period of time, to be able to help with any issues, help with any defects or incidents in the production environment. So you've got to get through that warranty period. You've got to close down any severe defects that haven't been closed down yet, or any new ones, any new issues. And then usually, not just the defects, you might want to agree something with the business in terms of how long the warranty period is, not just how long it is, but what's the criteria to that. Do they want like a month of operations without any intervention from the project, so it can just run smoothly and all the automation is working correctly and everything is set up nicely, so they feel confident that they don't need the project there anymore to help them, they can just take it on. So you need to agree that up front. But that's the first big thing you need to get through your warranty period before you can close down the project. Next, you want to make sure that all the training and all the project documentation is available and people know where it is. So all the training needs to have been delivered, all the training material is there in a safe place, and all the project documentation you've done throughout the project is there for future projects and future upgrades and any changes that they want to do to the system that you've made a change to or introduced. So make sure that documentation is all stored nicely and in order, and your configuration management is up to date, all the versions are correct, and the linkage is there, so everything is traceable, every document traces to another one, there's no discrepancies and they're not out of sync. Make sure that's all done. Next, you want to review your critical success factors. Critical success factors are defined at the start of the project with your stakeholders, and there's only a handful of them, maybe like 5 to 10, and those are the really, really key things that have to happen to deem the project a success. So you want to run through those and make sure they have been achieved. Now, I've never been in a situation where you've delivered the project and you're in warranty and you look through your success criteria and you think, oh, we didn't do that one, oh my god, we can't close down the project. That's never happened. They are usually achieved. If they are not achieved, you can probably negotiate to live without them, unless there's a really, really big one that's but you'll know about that. You won't need to refer to your document to know. If there's a big issue, you will already know without having to go back to your critical success factors. So yeah, but you still, as a general rule, you want to make sure they've been addressed and they've been ticked off, so you can make sure you can put your success hat on at the end of the project. You might want to hold some kind of review of the project, so it can be used for lessons learned in the future. We usually call this a PIR, or a post-implementation review. What you want to do is get your project team together in a room, if you can, with some of the stakeholders, the key satellite members of the project or key stakeholders, and just do some upfront work before you go into the workshop, get feedback from all the stakeholders before you go in, and just think about what went well, what didn't go well, what we could have done better, what are the key lessons we've learned from it. You don't want it to turn into a finger pointing, blaming session. You don't want that at all. It's there to think about the good stuff as well as the bad stuff. So what did you do well and what did you not do so well, and what could you change? And yeah, it's really good. But real world technical project management, we don't, for some reason, we don't really look at them in the future. Like if you start a project, there's probably a wealth of PIRs to look at from other projects, but I found that people don't really do that. I don't know why. We should probably get better at doing that as project managers, but you don't want it to be a tick box exercise. You want to get some value from it and make sure you do a nice document that's there for future project managers or future people that are making changes in the future. So yeah, get that right and do it well. What else? So the big one is the handover document. So you want to make this all formal, you want to create what's called a handover document, and you're basically handing over the project to business as usual, the operations that have now been set up, so the project is no longer required. And that handover document will cover everything I've just talked about. It will cover any outstanding defects that need to be fixed that you might have agreed to go ahead with or just close down without being fixed. Any workarounds that are required to get around those defects, they need to be documented, or the training, or the proving that you've delivered on your promises, the critical success factors, the reference to the PIR, location of all the documentation that you've stored. You want to cover all that in the handover document. So that's like the complete guide. You can just give someone that document and now walk away. That it's all in there. If you need anything, just look at that. It will give you the answer, or it will refer you where to go. That's what you want to do. And this document will need to be signed off by key stakeholders. You want to put a bit of formality around it. You probably want to have a meeting with and have it minuted, and the outcome of that meeting to go in your project decisions log to make it all formal. And you may even want to involve your steering group in that as well to formally close down the project, so you've got a record of that that it's been done properly, and you can always point to that if you are audited or someone challenges it in the future. And the last thing that you might need to do is before you actually close down the project, is prove out the benefits. So some projects are there to save costs. Well, a lot of projects are there to save costs or increase profit, increase revenue. And sometimes you need to prove that you've done that before you can close down the project. So you might actually have, after you've done all the stuff I've just talked about, you might have to have like 6 months to a year potentially of just tracking, revenue and income or cost reductions to prove that you've delivered on the benefits that you said you were going to justify the costs of the project. It's all part of the business case. So you might have to wait until that has happened before you can close down the project formally. Sometimes you can do it ahead of that. It depends how rigorous they are with the governance in your company. But as best practice, you should really prove that you've delivered the benefits of the project before you close it down. That's really the last thing you have to do. And yeah, the benefits phase is actually sometimes given its own phase of the project, because it can take a long time to get through to get all that data to prove it's been a success and you've really delivered on your promises and you've delivered some kind of monetary value or savings to the company. Okay, that is pretty much the video. That's how you close down a project. Hope you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already. I'm doing daily videos all about technical project management. If you are new to the technical project management, this is the channel for you. Just tune in. Within a few months, you'll have a pretty good fundamental understanding of how it all works. Okay, until tomorrow, please take care.